Well, good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to day 2 of the Toronto Global Forum, and we certainly have a big day ahead. I hope that everyone had a good evening. I hope that you all had a chance to enjoy everything that Toronto has to offer. And how about those Blue Jays? Oh. The dream is alive, my friends. The dream is alive. We're all going to be glued to our televisions tonight, of course, for the next one. Some of you may be a little bit sleep deprived. I'm not even going to say I'm sorry about that, but I am going to tell you that we have some coffee that will be on offer throughout the morning for all of you if you need to refresh. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with us at the Toronto Global Forum. We really do have some impactful conversations. We have 3 days of them, but it is a very challenging, it's also a quite fascinating time in Canadian and global history. And whether you're joining us in person, as so many of you are today, or online, we're grateful for it. My name is Catherine Clark. I am the co-founder of The Honest Talk. I'm very pleased to be here as your MC for this forum, which forms part of the International Economic Forum of the Americas. And I would like to begin by acknowledging that our meetings today are situated on the traditional and unceded territory of many peoples, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat, a territory that is now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples. For those of you who were with us yesterday, you know that our conversations at this year's forum revolve around the theme of leading in times of transformation. And today we're putting a particular emphasis on issues related to energy, critical minerals, and infrastructure. Before we get underway, I would like to extend special thanks to Cogeco, our presenting partner. We remain truly grateful to Cogeco for their deep and enduring support of this event and of the IEFA. And it is therefore my great pleasure to now introduce a longtime friend of this global forum to offer opening remarks. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Louis Audet, Chairman of the Board of Cogeco.
Thank you, Catherine, and dear friends of the Toronto Global Forum, good morning and welcome. It has been Cogeco's privilege to be the presenting partner of the Toronto Global Forum for almost maybe a little over 10 years now, and it's a great privilege. Thank you. The forum is making its mark in setting economic agendas in Canada and abroad. Cogeco is a telecommunications company that offers high-speed internet, passes 4 million households, serves 1.6 million customers in Quebec, Ontario, and 13 states of the eastern seaboard of the United States. We revel in connecting people and allowing them to speak to each other and please them with entertainment experience. So huge changes for the better are developing in Canada, with a new economy centered on an agenda in set by Ottawa that reflects a wonderful spirit of cooperation now between the provinces and territories among themselves, as well as with the federal government. Key to the new agenda has been creating favorable conditions for our private industry to be able to effectively play its part in creating economic benefits for the well-being of Canadians. So this includes regulatory predictability to encourage investment and the transformation of the Canadian economy to deal with the threats that we are all familiar with. The removal of red tape and the incentivizing of private investment are the keys to our economic sovereignty. Now, speaking of economic sovereignty and development, it is now my distinct privilege to introduce someone we all know and appreciate, and to which we are grateful that he's taking the time to come and speak to us today. This is someone who does away with needless red tape, who gets things done in a no-nonsense way, and someone who carries a message that we're friendly, but we're not pushovers. So please join me in welcoming the Premier of the great province of Ontario, Mr. Doug Ford.
It looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone, and what a powerful commercial. And it's, you know, something in a way, it's just sending the message to our great American friends. I love the U.S. I love the American people. I spent 20 years of my life down there in our Chicago facility in New Jersey. And when I speak to the folks down there, no matter if it's Republican or Democrat, you know, they do not agree with what President Trump is doing. The Republicans don't agree, no matter if it's the governors, senators, congressmen, and women. They're just too scared to say anything because they'll have President Trump going after them. But again, the greatest president the U.S., in my opinion, has ever seen was Ronald Reagan. And we thought, what better voice to send to our American friends than Ronald Reagan's message that protectionism does not work. It will never work. All it does is create inflation, less competition, and what happens? People lose their jobs. Well, first of all, thank you, Louis, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you, Joe, and the Global Forum for the invitation to be here this morning at this absolutely terrific event. It's great to be joined by Minister Fedeli. I'm not too sure where he is. I think he's in the crowd somewhere. Okay, Minister Fedeli. I call Vic my #1 sales guy. I don't know how he does it. He hops on the plane, and one day he's calling me from Germany, and then he's calling me from Asia a few days later, and then he's in Sweden, but every single time you come back with opportunities. And the opportunities is very simple. He calls me, by the way, he calls me every night, or messages me every single night, 365 days a year. And he says, here's your vitamins. He calls them my vitamins. And those vitamins are, you know, ABC company is coming, XYZ company is coming, and there's still massive, massive amounts of companies that are interested in investing in Ontario. As you always say, Vic, you know, the pipeline is full. And we break the pipeline into different categories, under $100 million investment, under $500 million, and then the $1 billion investments. And as you say, they're coming here because they see Ontario as a safe haven. Pro-business government, a government that has created the environment and conditions for companies to come here and invest. We've seen over $70 billion of investment over the last 5-6 years. Because we've never raised a tax. We've cut red tape and regulations. And thank you, Vic, for traveling all over the world. I don't know, maybe Patty likes Patty. I love his wife. She's amazing, the best cheesecake maker ever. Actually, I think I make a pretty mean cheesecake too. But anyway, she's just a wonderful person. The hardest job, I always say, I said it in my last speak, the hardest job in this place, not mine, not anyone else, it's Jen, my teleprompter person, because I'm all over the map right now. Jen, just hang in there. I'm getting back to the script here. So we're here today to talk about leadership in times of transformation. And when I think of leadership, I think of people in this room. Every single person plays a role in leadership. No matter what organization you're from, you play a role. And that's what we need here. Not only Canada to play a role to 41 million people, but globally. Every single person needs to play a leadership role, including our great friends down in the U.S. Folks, it's time for transformation of our province and our country. President Trump continues to take direct aim at Canada. He's added and expanded tariffs on Canadian steel, autos, aluminum, lumber, and copper. And he seems intent on putting tariffs on everything else he can get his hands on. Where President Trump is misguided and what he doesn't understand, I'm a business guy, I'm not a politician, I'm sheer numbers. And we are their number one customer. We buy more goods off the U.S. than any other country in the entire world. We buy about $356 billion of goods right across our country. That's U.S. dollars, by the way. And when it comes to Ontario, we do $500 billion a two-way trade, and we'd be the third largest trading partner in the world, next to China and Mexico, Ontario alone. We're the number one trading partner to 15 states, number 2 to 12 others. We play an absolute critical role. We are an economic powerhouse, not just here in Canada or the US, but around the world. Many of you have heard me. Many of you have heard me say this before, but it bears repeating. A tariff on Canada is nothing more than a tax on Americans. Some of America's top economists have put the cost of tariffs at $2,400 for every U.S. household and expect the American economy to shed nearly 500,000 jobs by the end of 2025. I was reading the Financial Times yesterday, and what they've said is for the last 5 to 6 months, decrease in jobs in the U.S. month after month after month. And the Center for Automotive Research in the U.S. says that President Trump's tariffs on autos will raise costs for American automakers by over $108 billion U.S. dollars in 2025. You know, I'm in deep talks with the automakers right now. Again, we buy more vehicles than anyone in the world, 400 times more than Mexico. We buy 75% of all the heavy-duty vehicles, trucks that are coming out of the U.S. are coming to Canada. We buy over 2 million automobiles here in Ontario, in Canada. That's a massive amount. 30% of everything that gets shipped out of the U.S. comes to Canada. So again, we're an automotive economic powerhouse. These kinds of enormous costs on business result in two outcomes, folks. Higher prices for American consumers and fewer jobs for American workers. But there's good news for President Trump. The fastest, surest, and easiest way to reverse America's economic decline, end the tariffs. Make a deal with Canada. The past winter, in the face of President Trump's tariffs, our government was reelected with a historic third majority mandate, a mandate to implement our plan to protect Ontario and to transform Ontario's economy into the most competitive place in the G7 to invest and create jobs so we can be more resilient, more self-reliant, and take on whatever challenges come our way. Our plan to protect Ontario is cutting red tape and regulations to streamline approvals, which has already saved Ontario businesses $12 billion every single year and 1.8 million person hours. Folks, I have a very simple theory. We have never, think of this. We've seen revenues, when we came into office, we saw revenues at about 150 billion. We grew those revenues up to over $220 billion, $70 billion with new businesses, 45 billion, 46 billion from the automotive sector, and we've never raised a tax. There's no reason to raise taxes. I always say government has a spending problem, they don't have an income problem. And a very simple theory, you put money back into businesses' pockets, they're gonna invest it into their people, into technology, into infrastructure, and into buying new equipment. and it'll create an opportunity to hire more people. You put money back into people's pockets, it's very simple. They'll go out and they'll spend it. And I always say as simple as going out for dinner that they might otherwise not be able to do if you tax them to death. And the message to the Prime Minister, I'll be seeing him at 4:30 today, which I've said over and over again. And by the way, the Prime Minister is a very bright businessman, very bright. And I work extremely well with him. But we have to move quicker, faster, immediate on everything. And we will follow suit. I always believe in making sure that we have the lowest business tax rates anywhere in the world to attract companies. We need to lower business taxes. We need to lower personal income tax. That will make sure that our economy keeps thriving and prospering. Our plan is building pipelines, rail lines, Our plan on infrastructure is to build pipelines, rail lines, roads, ports, highways, and transmission lines to diversify our trading partners and find new customers in new markets so we can rely less on the old ones. Our plan is creating new jobs and opportunities for Ontario workers by unleashing the enormous economic potential of the Ring of Fire. That will create over, just for the beginning of the Ring of Fire, create over $22 billion towards our economy, 75,000 new jobs, and building the future of nuclear power, including the first small modular reactors in the G7 and a new large-scale nuclear facilities. Folks, when I talk to our great colleagues in the U.S., they want two things. They want our energy. They're in desperate need of our energy. We're leaders in nuclear around the world. We're first out of the gate on the SMRs, the small modular reactors. And we're building large-scale nuclear as well. We're going to look at adding 16,000 megawatts to the grid. Now, we aren't going to need the 16,000. We're going to need a lot of it. But to put that into perspective, for every 1,000 megawatts, it's 1 million homes. But we know we aren't going to have 16 million homes, but we know we're going to have businesses that want a lower cost in energy. We know these data centers will suck up about 1,000 megawatts of energy and more. And we know that our American friends are in desperate need of our energy. We already keep 1.5 million lights on and businesses lights on in the U.S. through Minnesota, Michigan, and New York. And other governors I met with, Pennsylvania, they need more energy. New York needs more energy. And folks, there's no one else I'd love to give energy to than our great friends and closest allies, the Americans. But I'm not going to give them energy if their president wants to destroy our economy, take every single job out of Ontario, out of Canada, and expect us to sell him cheap energy to compete against us. It's not going to happen. And that's the same with our critical minerals. And that's the same with our critical minerals, that everyone in the entire world wants our critical minerals. Again, I'd love to send them down to our neighbors, but it's not going to happen. We will not send a grain of critical minerals down there as long as we're under constant attack by President Trump. He always says, I don't need Canada. Well, you're darn right you need Canada. And, you know, no matter what, and by the way, I'm not speaking on behalf of my good friend Scott Moe. He's a great premier out in Saskatchewan. But the uranium gets shipped from Saskatchewan over to Port Hope in Ontario, gets refined here, and then gets enriched down in the U.S. They have 94 turbines that they rely on Canadian uranium. Farmers all throughout the U.S. rely on potash coming from Saskatchewan. They'd be devastated if you cut them off on potash. And President has a choice in this. Either you deal with Putin and the Russians, or you deal with their closest friends and allies, Canada, and build an AMCAN fortress, a stronger, more resilient, the richest, wealthiest two countries in the entire world if we work together. We've provided nearly $30 billion in immediate support for trade and tariff-impacted workers and businesses. We've signed agreements with 10 other provinces and territories to advance internal free trade, and signed an agreement with Alberta and Saskatchewan to build pipelines and rail lines to bring Western Canadian oil and gas and Ontario's critical minerals to new markets. Folks, the majority of the people in Canada did not realize we had a Canadian free trade agreement amongst all the provinces and territories. They didn't realize that you couldn't ship a box of wine from BC over to Ontario or vice versa. This is going to add $200 billion to our economy, add 6% to our GDP, just making sure that we cut down all the red tape and all the regulations between the provinces. And we're doing it, and we're moving forward. We've passed legislation to create new economic zones, a powerful new tool to significantly speed up approvals for major projects that will create jobs, grow our economy, and make our province more resilient. We've increased our plan to build more than $220 billion of new infrastructure. That makes it the largest plan in Canadian history and one of the largest in North America. I know we're building the largest subway system in North America. We're building the roads, the bridges, the highways, $60 billion of hospitals, and when we're building the schools, $22 billion of schools and homes right across our great province. And we're going to build the longest and largest tunnel in the world along the 401, the busiest highway in the world. That's costing us, through the Toronto Board of Trade's numbers, $55 billion a year of congestion, of lost productivity, but we're going to get the shovels in the ground, create thousands and thousands of more jobs. It's not that just because we've never done it, doesn't mean we can't do it. We have the brightest, smartest people in the entire world living right here in Ontario. No matter when it's technology or AI, and AI was born here in Toronto. We have some of the brightest people when it comes to the tech, and we're going to be pouring money into that and creating the environment and the conditions for AI to move forward and technology to move forward to make ourselves more competitive. And whether we can, we're using Ontario steel, forestry materials, and any other Ontario products we can. So Ontario tax dollars are supporting Ontario workers. And what we're doing as well, and again, President Trump doesn't see this, but we're starting to onshore everything now. Everything. As much as some of the housing is slow right now, you go over Toronto, you fly over Toronto, there's more cranes in the sky in Toronto and GTA than the top 10 cities in the US. You think of that. And what do these cranes carry? They carry steel. And the steel beams, they come from all over, but now we're manufacturing here in Ontario, and they're going to lose out on billions of dollars of steel beams in the US. As simple as, I don't know, a beverage can, a beer can. Find out the vast majority of them are produced in the US. Something's broken. When Quebec ships the aluminum down to the US and gets tariffed 25%, they form it, print it, and ship it back and get another 25%. Now we're bringing on companies that are producing cans, along with tin cans as well. The tin is coming from Dofasco and Hamilton, getting shipped down to the US, getting converted and being shipped back. Those days are done. Everything is coming back and we're onshoring it. And what is unfortunate for our American friends, once you turn that tap on and you start bringing companies back, there's no turning it off. And there's going to be tens of thousands of people that will lose their jobs down in the US just because he believes in protectionism. Next week, the Ontario legislature returns for its fall sitting. When it does, our government will be ready to continue to deliver on our plan to protect Ontario, Doing so will mean tough choices and hard work. Over the last several months, my Minister of Red Tape Reduction, Andrew Kanjan, which is an absolute all-star, has been working with her cabinet colleagues to identify business-facing permits and approvals that are making Ontario's economy less competitive. I always say the best leads we get, and folks right in this room, in your sector, if there's red tape, if there's regulations, if there's duplication with the federal government, please send it our way. And as quickly as you send it our way, we'll do our due diligence and we'll get rid of the red tape. Government drives me crazy. The red tape, and it does. I'm a business guy. I come into government and I always say, the worst place to give your money is government. I'm telling you, we just believe that you can spend it wiser. You can create more jobs. Let the market dictate. Don't let the government dictate. Our job is to create the climate and the conditions and the environment for companies and people to come here and thrive and prosper and grow. There's hundreds of them. Thank you. The red tape and regulation, there's hundreds of them, and they total over 1 million approvals each year for businesses. Over the coming years, with the action starting this coming session, we will be relentless in our work to eliminate and streamline most permits. For any of that remain that are absolutely necessary, we will implement clear and accountable service standards and timelines, giving businesses that certainty they need to invest. Friends, we're living in extraordinary times right around the world. This isn't a challenge Ontario asked for, but it's a challenge we're prepared to meet. The best way to do so, the best way to win, is to unleash our economy. The best way to win is to make ourselves more competitive, more resilient, and more self-reliant. Together, alongside municipalities, workers, unions, First Nations, businesses, and all levels of government, we're going to emerge from this stronger than ever before and more united than ever before. I want to thank you for inviting me today, and may God bless the people of Ontario. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Good morning. If you could take your seats, that'd be great. So good morning, distinguished guests, colleagues, and business leaders. My name is Joe St. Julian. I'm the president of the nuclear business at AtkinsRéalis, a Canadian-based engineering construction company. I want to thank Premier Ford for his presence here today and obviously his inspiring words. Obviously, he's ready to fight, which is great. I also want to take a minute or two to express my gratitude for his leadership in advocating for Ontario, Canada, a sentiment I suspect most of the people in the auditorium share with me today. I believe the primary goal of elected officials is to advocate and pursue policies that improve the livelihood of their constituencies. It's about improving the standards of living for the people that live here in Ontario and in Canada. Clearly, Premier Ford is doing that. In this regard, I think he's doing a remarkable job, and I just want to take a minute to list a couple of things that I think he's done fantastic with. He mentioned it in his remarks, but the elimination of inter-provincial trade barriers, provincial and global cooperation agreements, 6% increase in GDP simply by having free trade in country is fantastic. It actually gives companies like mine the kind of confidence required for us to make big investments in Ontario. I think him fighting for industries critical to Canadian national defense is admirable. I'm talking about energy, transportation, mining, ports. These things are critically important to our ability to compete, and they also produce very good paying jobs here at home. His administration is investing in Ontario to become the most productive, prosperous geography in the world to invest in. As I said, the company I work for is investing hundreds of millions of dollars because of the confidence we get from government here in Ontario and in Ottawa. Commitment to growth in order to position Ontario as a global leader in clean energy and technology is of paramount importance. As an energy person, I think this is key to what we're trying to do. Important to me as a president of a Canadian-based global nuclear company, the continued support nuclear power, critically important. And I'll tell you, this is the best nuclear market in 40 years. Right? Commercial nuclear power, 600 nuclear power plants built on the planet, 35 of them were with Canadian technology. That's 5% of that market. This next wave, driven by net zero and AI, we're going to build 10%. And that's a sovereign Canadian technology we consider to be best in class. It's not just investment in large reactors, it's also taking the leadership in small reactors. You know, there are 2 SMRs in service today. One is from Rosatom, one is from CNNC, the Russians and the Chinese. They operate at 20% capacity. They produce 100 megawatts of electricity. This is not great. The only SMR being built in the Western world is here in Ontario. And with the GE Hitachi BWRX-300, Canada, again, is taking a lead to preserve its Tier 1 nuclear status and influence nuclear energy around the world. I think it's remarkable. And, you know, Premier Ford is known, you know, for those of you who know him, he's known as a man of the people, right? So as a man of the people, he came and visited our shop recently. And I'll tell you, this is a Can-Do Energy Inc. shop inside of Mississauga, and so enthusiastic in meeting with our engineers and our shop manufacturing workers. Totally turn these guys on. They are in it to win it. They know that good paying jobs are part of it, and I think it's the leadership of Premier Ford that's giving those guys the confidence. So as we gather here today in Toronto from across borders to discuss the challenges and opportunities for a shared and bright future, the Ford administration's determination, unity, and pragmatism helped set the pace and the tone for our discussions. So I want to just thank Premier Ford, and I want to thank the organizers, Nicola Remillard, for the opportunity to be with you today. I'm proud to be a worker in the nuclear industry under a leadership of such an advocate, the leadership of such an advocate and champion of Canadian excellence. Thank you.